Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the sources, pull out the crucial bits, and basically give you a head start on really understanding complex topics. Today we're diving into a symbol you've probably heard of, maybe even, studied a bit, the sacred cow. Often seen just as, well, the Hindu thing, Omata, or maybe you know it from Islam's Surah al-Baqarah.
Right.
But what if it's not just cultural reverence? What if the sacred cow actually tells us something really fundamental about where human language came from? Maybe even about existence itself. Get ready, because this is a pretty radical reinterpretation we're looking at today.
It really is. Our main source here is quite intriguing. It's a paper called The Sacred Cow, Mother Tongue's Ancient Echo. It comes from the assistant to Dr. Monogenesis at the Odam Tili Academiasi, or OTA.
Okay, OTA. And Kuchkarov's theory, Odam Tili.
Yes, Odam Tili, or OT theory. The core idea is that early human language and religious meaning weren't separate things. They sort of co-emerged.
Co-emerged.
From really basic embodied experiences. Think about, the sounds we made, breathing, the whole experience of maternal care, primal stuff. And through that lens, the cow becomes, the first phonosemantic symbol.
Phonosemantic.
Yeah.
Meaning sound and meaning tied together.
Exactly. Like a living linguistic fossil. It connects nourishment, our sense of being, ontology, and the very roots of speech. So we'll be pulling from linguistic anthropology, religious symbols, embodied cognition, all that good stuff.
Okay, wow. So let's unpack this, starting with Sanskrit. Gomata. Literally mother cow. Go cow. Mata, mother. And the traditional view, Vedic culture, the cow brings dharma, order, ahimsa, nonviolence. We've seen that in writers like Doniger.
Right, that's the standard symbolic reading.
But this OT theory, it goes way deeper than symbolism, doesn't it? Down to the sound.
It absolutely does. It looks at the sound structure itself. Kuchkarov argues that the G sound connects to Golova head, and O means down or beneath.
Oh?
So Go literally describes a creature whose head is typically pointing down. Unlike us, upright humans.
The low-headed creature.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is how this phonosemantic logic seems to pop up elsewhere. Think about English dog.
Dog. How?
Well, the structure. Do for body, O for low, G for head. It fits the same pattern. It suggests a really old, consistent way sounds map onto forms.
Huh. That's really something.
Yeah.
That the sound itself carries the meaning. So if go is low-headed, what about mata?
Right, mata. The ma sound is almost universal for giving, nourishing. Think mama, milk, mater in Latin.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
And ta, according to the theory, signifies an embodied vertical structure, like tana for body or even tree, tower, something upright, solid.
Right, so putting it together, Gomata isn't just mother cow, it's what? The low-headed being that gives bodily nourishment.
Exactly, the archetypal mother, defined by its physical posture and its function.
And you're saying this isn't just an Indo-Aryan thing, it's potentially global, rooted in how sounds relate to our bodies everywhere.
That's the core argument. It reflects a universal phonosemantic logic preserved across different language families. It's less cultural invention, more like linguistic bedrock.
Wow. Okay. And this deep echo, it's not just in Hinduism, right? You mentioned Islam. Surah al-Baqarah, the cow.
Yes. The second and longest chapter in the Qur'an, specifically verses 2.6771.
So the traditional interpretation of the tafsir.
Yeah.
That's usually about the Israelites, a murder mystery, and God telling them to sacrifice a cow, right? A test of faith.
That's the common narrative interpretation, yes, a lesson in obedience. But OT theory looks, again, for a deeper linguistic and ontological code.
Yeah.
Think about when the community says, "Do you take us for a joke?" The theory suggests this isn't just simple defiance, it's a crisis of symbolic trust.
Zolikrat.
Yeah. Why a cow? Seems so mundane, so simple. But that simplicity is the point. The cow becomes a test of submitting to metaphysical authority because it's such a basic foundational symbol, not just decoration.
It's like a gateway.
A semantic gatekeeper, as the source puts it. An ancient signifier connecting obedience, nourishment, and that fundamental biological trust we associate with the maternal.
So the Baqarah in the Qur'an, it's not just any cow. It's tapping into that voice of survival, that maternal echo embedded deep in human experience.
That's the idea. And its appearance there, its sort of symbolic resurrection, is seen as confirming its status as a universal phonosemantic archetype.
A shared primal memory resurfacing in the sacred text.
Potentially, yes.
It's so easy to think of the cow's sacredness as purely, religious doctrine, something people just decided a long time ago.
Right, a cultural overlay.
But these sources are pointing towards something much more tangible. Biological even.
Absolutely. There's compelling historical evidence. In many early societies, if a human mother couldn't nurse, what saved orphaned or abandoned babies?
Cow's milk.
Often, yes, cow's milk. The cow literally acted as a biological surrogate mother. There are documented cases, researchers like Simons, Eilers mention traditions in Africa, Central Asia, India.
So this wasn't just symbolism, it was survival.
It was often life or death, and modern science actually backs this up in a way.
How so?
Nutritional science shows cow's milk, while not identical as lactose, immunoglobulins, proteins, it mimics human breast milk closely enough to sustain an infant's life. Assad's research touches on this. It worked, biologically.
Which leads to that really powerful quote from Dr. Kushkarov you mentioned from his lectures.
He says, the cow is not a mythic projection, it is a biological fact. Gamata is the name we gave to the being that gave us life when our mother could not.
Wow, that really shifts the perspective. Religious symbols may be growing out of these profound, real-world, empirical events.
It suggests a much more grounded origin for some of these deeply held beliefs.
Okay, so if the cow carries this huge weight, biologically, linguistically, across different major traditions, what does that suggest about monogenesis, this idea of a single origin for things?
Well, it's certainly what the OT theory leans into when you compare linguistics across these traditions.
Like Gomata, Bakara.
Exactly. And Hebrew para, also meaning cow, they all seem to circle back to this figure of the mother, the nourisher, and crucially specific sounds phones like ma, ta, go, ba keep showing up.
In context of
birth, feeding, the body, the earth. Really fundamental stuff.
And OT theory says this isn't just chance.
Not according to Kuchkarov, no. The argument is that major religions deep down share a phonosemantic code, a code rooted in how our bodies interacted with the world through sound, through breath.
Bioacoustic interaction.
Yeah, breath, sound, touch, nourishment, these formed the core symbolic structure. And later, more abstract religious systems evolved from that foundation. And, there's supporting work in comparative mythology, even neurolinguistics, from people like Witzel or Levinson that resonates with parts of this.
So, the sacred cow, it stops being just a symbol or a story. It becomes like a doorway.
A portal to the mother tongue, as the source frames it, not just metaphorically, semantically, biologically, ontologically. It's presented as this foundational piece of our shared story, hidden in plain sight, or plain sound, really.
Okay, let's try and pull this together.